All right, this conversation involves talking about how we are formed by friends. How you doing? Wait! Stop! We can't afford that! Here's some generic background music called Friendship. I don't remember a moment when this happened, and in fact I don't think there probably was a single moment. I think it's a continual drift, but I remember reflecting halfway through my teenage years that the family I'd grown up with, who I had taken for granted every single day, who I had accompanied on holidays and trips and visits and mealtimes every day of my life, well, they were becoming replaced by a group of people that were more my age, that I felt got me, that I shared interest with, my friends. And gradually they became to the forefront more and more, and they were the people I hung out with, they were the people who I decided where I went to university with, they were the people that I wanted to spend each day with. And when you're 5, like a family holiday is a big thing. When you turn 17, you're like, oh, can I just go away with my friends? Maybe you can remember that same journey happening to you. Maybe you're experiencing it from the other side now as a parent, and you're watching your children discover friendship circles and those friends being incredibly important people in their lives. And because of the way society and culture teaches us, that sometimes causes some kind of dissonance, some kind of conflict internally inside us. Because culture says that we are individuals, that we can think however we like to, act however we like to, and it doesn't matter what other people do, that's them and we're us, and the way that we interact, well, it's really not that important. But we know and we feel the effect and the influence of others. There are people who are friends of mine, and I, if I'm honest, notice how I change around them. There are some friends of mine who, when I'm around them, I like to become a more gracious or a more kind or a more encouraging person. It just rubs off on me. There are some people who I am friends with who have an incredible capacity to remember. They know more about me and about my life than I can remember, but they care so much that they've remembered small details, and they've committed those small details to prayer, and they remember to ask me about them 3 years later when I've long forgotten about something. I have friends who inspire me into a generosity. I have friends who are courageous and creative and think of new solutions to the problems of the world. Equally, there are people whose influence is maybe on the negative side of the dial. I mean, I'm old now, so maybe I'm not hanging out with people who actively encourage me to, do bad things. But there are people who, when I hang out with them and I like them and they're good people, they make me want to overinflate myself a little bit. I maybe exaggerate my own position or status or job or authority because I want to impress them. There are for sure other friendship groups and other friends who I know who are good people and who I like, but something happens when I hang out with them and I become more cynical, maybe about the world or about politics or about my faith. The Bible writers knew about this, and they knew the truth and the wisdom of friendship being important. Right in the middle of the Bible, there's a whole chunk of what's called wisdom literature, and one of the authors of much of that wisdom literature devotes a lot of time to talking about friends and about friendship. He has all the way through these pithy little 2-line sayings. He says once that the righteous, the good, the wise, the sensible, they choose their friends carefully. Well, why do they do that? Well, it's because in another proverb he says, do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with anyone easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. There's a trap that you might just accidentally walk into because you've learnt the ways of your friends. You didn't intend to be hot-tempered and angry, but you just picked it up from them. So watch who you're friends with. Another Bible writer much later on writes, again, picking up on this theme, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Another proverb writer says, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And that is the miracle that Jesus talks about when, looking at his friends in the eye, he says, hey, I don't call you servants anymore. That's how you used to think of the relationship between people and God. I don't want you to think of that anymore. I call you friends. Think of it like this. I've got a jar of Sharpies here. They make indelible marks on the world. They are permanent, and once you've made that mistake, that's there forever. Once you've done something good, it's there forever. Here are a bunch of Sharpies. They're all in this pot. They've all got their lids on. Most are facing the right way, thanks to somebody else who tidied them up, not me. But this Sharpie, whilst it's in that pot, has had absolutely no influence on this Sharpie in the pot. The sides of the Sharpie, if you see them, they're still clean. They're still pristine. I've also got a box of chalks. These chalks, well, they're stored much the same as the Sharpie. They sit on the shelf, they're in a container, they're all facing the right way up. But yet, if you can see them, the chalks are messy. Each chalk has influenced the other. The white chalk that's next to the blue chalk that's next to the green chalk, well, they've all rubbed off on one another. The influence of that chalk is seen and felt and observable on the other chalk. Maybe you remember a parent or a teacher saying to you, watch out for that person, they might rub off on you. So if we accept it to be true, that one person can rub off on another, well, that leaves us with some questions. The same questions that throughout this conversation and this, are you aware of who's rubbed off on you? Are you aware of the friends who have influenced you and formed you? Are you aware of the people who have pulled your character towards goodliness and godliness and kindness and graciousness? Have you ever thanked them? Have you purposefully hung around them more? Have you changed your diary so that you think, that person is a friend of mine who influences me towards good stuff, I'm going to hang out with them more? Equally, and I'm not saying we should cut people out of our phone book, but I do wonder if there are people who I need to just think a little bit more when I hang out with them. Okay, Paul, protect your spirit, protect your mind, protect your gut, protect your levels of cynicism or faith when you hang out with this person. Because there's something there that just triggers some downward spirals in you. And then equally, there's this invitation, there's this question throughout this, that if it's true that the character of God rubs off on us when we hang out with him because he calls us friends, well, then it's also true that our character and our personality rubs off on others. We have an invitation to form others. What is it? What would be the evaluation of others on their friendship with you? Are there people out there who would say things like, oh, great, when I hang out with Paul, I just become more faith-filled, or I just become more generous, or there is something within our friendship which sparks creativity or joy? I hope there is somewhere. I'm sure there are people who have experienced my friendship in ways that I wish were not true, but this illustration encourages me to think, who am I rubbing off on? How am I rubbing off on them? And what's different about the world because of the way that I am forming through friendship. Oh, got chalk all over.